We're live. Welcome to Red Hoop Talk. I'm Roy, Dangerous Roy. And this is my sister Shannon. Not like so dangerous right now, Shannon.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon,
Hello.
your illustrious co-host here with Sir Roy.
Dangerous Roy.
Dangerous. He's Dangerous Roy today. I'm sure we're going to find out more about that today. Thank you for joining Red Hoop Talk, and we're glad that we're here with you on a Sunday evening. We've got a great guest.
Awesome
I can't
guest.
wait to speak with her. Roy, how's your week going?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the first peoples of California upon whose land we stand. And you?
Yes, the Piscataway people is what's now called Maryland. I want to take this opportunity to be grateful for the Piscataway peoples for making this place the sacred and good place that it is. I want everyone, I hope, on Thanksgiving that's coming up, take some time to learn about the territory and the lands that you're standing on, and look up and see who were the first peoples on that original homeland you're on.
Roy, recognize them on that day. Should recognize them every day.
Yes, we should wake up thanking.
So first of all, welcome to the chat room. I know we've just it just launched. I think I don't see a whole bunch of people in the chat yet, but welcome, chat. Thank you all for participating and being here. We appreciate you all. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so that we can advance this cause out. And go ahead and share it out to your friends and people you know, and let them know who we are and what we're doing here. If you like what we're doing, help us get the word out.
Thank you, Roy.
The dangerous word. Get that dangerous word out there.
So can I ask you now how your week was?
So first of all, let's thank the AAIA for bringing Red Hoop Talk to Indian country. Thank you.
The Association on American Indian Affairs, the oldest nonprofit serving Indian country. Thank you, the association, which is a 501c3 organization, and the work that we do here on this podcast. And any income generated for it goes directly to that nonprofit. So,
thank you. Okay, so
now can I ask you what you do this week?
I got 6 pounds of dangerous back. I got 6 pounds of dangerous back. Yeah.
6 pounds or the?
I dropped 6 pounds of my COVID weight.
6 pounds.
Yes.
You fucking gave them to me, man. Gave them to me. I am like, I like about 6 pounds, man. After the repatriation conference and just trying to stress, COVID, everything.
So
I've got a baggy sweater on, man.
So I was worried about it because so I take care of my I don't take care of him. I shouldn't say that. My grandpa is 92 and he's alone now because my grandmother passed. And so I go over to visit him a couple times a week, and I worry about him. I check on him and stuff. And I was taking his blood pressure, and his blood pressure was up. And I'm like, what's going on here? And he's like, I don't have my blood pressure medication. I'm like, he goes, well, they won't call me. It's their fault. They won't call me. I said, it's not on them to get your, well, the pharmacy didn't call me, so screw them. I said, wait. This is your health we're talking about, Grandpa. This isn't their health. It's yours. Because he was mad at them for not calling him. So he wasn't going to take his pills. So I went and did the whole thing, and we checked him. And so I stuck the blood pressure thing on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
My blood pressure was a lot higher than it should be, right? So I'm like, damn. So I went home and I got on the scale. Oh, Lordy. trouble. No, I said I can't do that because I'm pre-diabetic too. So if I get too heavy, my sugar starts going up and the blood pressure and the sugar and everything's going up. So I said, that's it. No more. I'm not going to make no more excuses and let this COVID thing, because it's one thing to not be able to go to your gym or whatever, but it's another thing to sit there and just eat whatever you want and say, just screw it. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of where it's turned into. Because I noticed that I was like, no, there's something wrong. There's something else going on here, not just this. I can't blame this on the COVIDs, right? So I took it upon myself to eat right this last week and get myself moving again, you know. And so 6 pounds, dangerous back.
Is that all it takes? Is 6 pounds?
To make me happy, yeah, because it was a lot.
Is that why?
It was a lot. Now I'm a little closer to where I'm just overweight. 6 pounds was like, it was bad. It was bad.
So are you doing anything special to like lose weight? Not
Yeah. So you know, because my family's prone to diabetes, we're diabetic. So I like to focus on taking the carbohydrates out of my diet, you know, the breads and the sugars, the rices, the potatoes and those things, and kind of go with a more keto type diet, you know. And that's what does it for me. And then my body gets back to where it is. And then what else I found is that I'm real hungry when I eat like that. When I eat bad, I'm really hungry. Like if I'm up late, I'm like, I want to eat something else, and I'll eat a whole nother meal, you know. But when I'm eating lower carbohydrates, then I don't want those extra meals, and I don't eat as much when I sit down. But man, when I'm putting those carbs in, it's like, oh, more. I don't know what it is. It's like a never ending cycle. And then you get a case of the screw-its, you know, and it's just a perpetuating monster. And then bad things start happening. It's one thing to lose your sexy, you know, and not be dangerous anymore, but it's a whole nother thing when your blood pressure goes up and your sugar goes up. So everybody out there, if the COVID is getting you, man, I'm telling you guys, don't let it get your health in the other way. You know, it's one thing to be, you know, trying to stay away from the pandemic, but it's another thing to be like we are, which is sedate and in the sedative state and eating bad and letting our mind go, you know what, I'm lonely, I'm missing people, and I hate to stay in, so I'm just going to eat instead, you know. And the holiday is the worst time, right? Because then that's when all the good stuff starts getting cooked, right? You were talking about bacon the other day too. Right?
Candy, and then it's like, oh, it's getting a little cold. I think I need to bake some cookies. And
like we rated the kids' Halloween candy too, right? So first we get, like, I get the Almond Joys and the Reese's and the
all
Twix.
The things they don't want. Yeah.
I steal those. I straight up steal them from my kids. And I get the Twix and the Reese's and the Almond Joys. Those are mine. And then, you know, it's just this bad. And then the holidays come and it's just get worse. So I can't go into the holidays like heavier than I've ever been. Can't do that. Yeah. That's asking for trouble. I'll be in the hospital by February, you know.
Don't do that.
So anyway, so that's why I'm excited, because I got 6 pounds of dangerous back.
Right. Congratulations. And thanks for passing it along to me. Now I've got to deal with it somehow. But no, today I've just kind of like went, all right, I've got to chill out. I'm baking some healthy cookies, you know, those healthy cookies, and trying to slow the roll, as in the tummy roll, trying to slow that roll.
Lance is saying he's getting in the home gym, keeping him together.
Yeah.
So right on, Lance. Yeah, man, we got to stay healthy. We got to stay healthy because there's too much of that diabetes and the overweight and stuff going on in Indian country, and
nothing to be proud of.
Some of the reservations have like 80 to 90% in adults, you know, and that's just like crazy. It's crazy.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, I've just been stressed, so I eat when I'm stressed. I'm stressed because I have this thing I'm doing tomorrow that's kind of stressing me out.
What thing are you doing tomorrow? Or can you not talk about it?
This.
The 30 years and beyond.
NAGPRA, 30 years and beyond. I am on a panel, a 3-speaker panel with 2 of the biggest advocates in Indian country.
They got nothing on you. They got
Suzanne
nothing on you.
No, don't even say that, Roy. Don't. Suzanne Harjo, who's my idol. I used to read about her when I was going through school. I used to read about Spider Woman Theater. I used to read about all the activism she did. She was the one who was who got NAGPRA passed. And James,
look at you. You're all starstruck now. Look at you getting starstruck.
These are, I should be facilitating this panel. I shouldn't be one of the speakers.
Oh, Shannon, no.
I'm stressed.
We need to pick you up, girl.
So everybody come and I'm gonna share the link if I can, and it's free. It's a free thing. Come and
we gotta pump you up, Shannon.
Listen and ask us some interesting questions. And
don't you dare sit back like that. You got this. Don't. Yeah. Say it to me. Say it to me, Shannon. Come on, listen.
What do you want me to say to you, Roy?
So I want you to just pump yourself up, and I want you to say, "Bring your heroes here to die."
I don't know what the hell that means, Roy.
You're gonna take charge. You got it. You got this.
All right, I've got it. I've got this.
You're a hero slayer.
What's a hero? I don't want to slay heroes.
Yeah, you're the woman. You got this. Don't put yourself like that. Come on.
No, I'm not. It's just, hey, it's a freaking honor. I'm sitting with 2 elders that I deeply respect, and I just don't want to do anything to embarrass them.
Oh, well, that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen, Shannon.
Yeah, I'm gonna embarrass myself.
But it's gonna be fine. You're gonna be good.
Okay, but y'all come and listen. I need support, and I'm looking forward to it. But at the same time, I'm a little bit. We just got through like 3 days of our repatriation conference, and I was speaking there, and all of that is great and fine. But being an equal on the stage with those 2 is just. I've been eating more, I think, because of this. I'll probably be eating during the symposium.
In all serious, congratulations, and that's awesome that you're going to be on that panel. That's very cool. Proud of you.
Right. All right. Enough of that. I was you'd make fun of me or something. I thought it'd be good.
Well, I lightened it up first. It's like you put your arm around someone and you punch them in the gut, right? Okay.
Thank you. Oh yeah, I feel it. I feel it now.
You got this. You got this. And you're an elder too now. Just remember, there's Indian country out there. You're the elder to some of these folks. I see that. You can't hide that. You can't hide that. They saw you. They saw you, Shannon.
Nobody saw that. Anyone see anything? I didn't see anything. Hey, well, so all right, Roy, we're what are we doing?
We're dangerous and we're ready to go.
Dangerous and we're ready to go. Should we bring on our dangerous guest?
Yes, please do.
So I want to introduce the wonderful CARLY Badheart, who is Dakota Muskogee Creek and a citizen of the Flandreau Santee Sioux Tribe in South Dakota. He is in Minneapolis right now, serving as executive director of the Native Ways Federation. And we're going to talk about what the Native Ways Federation is a little bit. But CARLY has really done some great work in her young life in philanthropy and giving back. She also worked, and we're going to hear this story more, about getting the name changed to Minnesota's largest lake And so I can't wait to hear that story. But let's go ahead and bring on up, if you haven't already, bring on up. There she is, Carly Bad Heartful. Hey.
Hello.
Hey, how are you, Carly?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here today.
We're glad to have you.
So what's your COVID weight? Let's get into the dirty right from the start.
No. I'm working at home with a 3.5-year-old who has lots of snacks. So we're not going to go there.
Yes. And those 3-year-old snacks are good. That's good.
Costco snacks.
Oh man.
Yeah.
In bulk. Oh,
In bulk.
That's terrible. All right. We got to change the subject. Quick. I'm getting hungry. All right, Carly. So let's first off, you have you seem to be one of many nations. You are all of Indian country within you. You've got Dakota, you've got Creek. So how those two got together, I don't know. And then from Santee Sioux. So what's going on there? Who's your family that made all this possible?
Yeah, so I'm Dakota, a citizen of the Flandreau Santee Sioux Tribe in South Dakota. Bdewakantunwan, that's the people I come from. And our original homeland is here where I sit today in Minneapolis, also known as Bdewakantunwan, city of many lakes. I live in my homeland, Minnesota, the land where the water reflects the sky. But I didn't grow up here. My family, we have, like many Native families, we have a pretty detailed story, right? So my dad, Sid Bean, is a citizen of Flandreau, and he grew up there. And so that's where I get my Dakota side. And my mom is a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation, born and raised in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And so that's where that comes in. And then I'm also married to a Lakota. So I'm Dakota. I'm actually Dakota and Nakota. On my dad's side, my grandma was Dakota. My grandpa was Nakota. He was from Yankton. And so I have Dakota and Nakota. And then now my husband comes along from Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and brings the Lakota energy into the room. And so now we have a son. I call him the trifecta. He's like all three. He's Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, all three language dialects of the, what's known as the Sioux Nation, not what we call ourselves, obviously. Right. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit about how I came to be, I guess, is, my parents met in New York City back in the day when they were both doing some work in urban Native communities, and got married and ended up having 4 kids, and here we are.
Woo! And a 3-year-old. How's that?
3-year-old.
During COVID, I don't know how, parents of young children. I have a 14-year-old, and he's great. He's fine. He knows how to do what he needs to do for school and all that stuff. But a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, and and you're working from home, right?
Right.
How's it going for you?
Crazy. And I probably shouldn't admit that because you're actually on my board, Shannon. I'll be honest. So I moved into this position back in April, and so I it's been crazy, and I went through a job transition.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of COVID, which is also kind of crazy. But good, nonetheless. It's been hard, right? Like so many families, I'm navigating working from home right now. My husband was making dinner, and I shushed him. He's gonna have to wait. We live in a small, 1-level duplex, and it's taken us a while to kind of navigate throughout the days of okay, when am I on webinars? When am I in meetings? When am I not? And we try to figure it out, but we always, there's always mix-ups. So just so you know, a 3.5-year-old may run in here at any time. He may be dressed like Jack Skellington. He may be dressed like Spider-Man. I don't know. Depends on how he's feeling tonight. Hopefully he'll be wearing pants. What are you going to do?
I got one of those too.
Yeah. You know, so you just you do the best you can, right? I'm right now my office, because previously I worked, you know, in an office building in downtown St. Paul. I used to be at an organization called the Bush Foundation, and when I moved over to the organization I'm at now, Bush Foundation agreed to continue housing me, and so I still have my office there, but I can't get there. I can't get in there. It's all shut down. So I'm actually in my son's room right now. I've turned this into my office, and you know, doing, again, just we're doing the best we can with the situation. You know, thankfully, you know, my family is healthy, and that's what I'm focused on, right? Is that my family so far has been healthy, at least in my immediate family. Like many folks in my extended family, I you know, we have cases and things like that we're dealing with, but we're taking it day by day over here, and we keep moving along, right? Keep plugging along and doing what has to be done, because the work doesn't stop. Right. If anything, there's more work to be done, as you know very well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you were in the heart of the protests that were happening during when Floyd was murdered. George Floyd was murdered. And I remember you describing some of that to us on your board. How is all of that going now? What was that like then? And how has it changed? And how has the community come together?
Yeah, it's been hard. I mean, I live about 8 blocks, I think, from where George Floyd was killed. And when that happened, obviously, I mean, it just kind of took over, you know, the energy of the space of where we're living. My sister, I have a twin sister, and she lives 2 blocks from the 3rd precinct, which is the police precinct that was burned down. And so in between her neighborhood and my neighborhood, a lot of the protests and some of the violence, the fires, were kind of going back and forth. And so it's hard to explain, because although I think for many folks who have been through stuff like this, they understand it's like, it's a lot of things. It's everything. You feel everything. From moments of fear, you know, there were nights where we just heard rubber bullets from the police, like throughout the night. We woke up to smoke and ashes in our yard, our bank, our post office, our pharmacy, our local grocery store all burnt down. So you know, that is scary. And there's also this excitement and this energy in the air, with people who are fed up with the injustices that have been happening, coming together. And I also want to recognize, and we're seeing we're seeing this play out in many ways, but the fact that much of the significant violence as far as the fires, the things that the buildings that were set on fire, they're finding actually weren't from local community activists. They were from folks who had come from out of town, who were intent on, who were upset with government and wanted it, and primarily white. They called themselves activists, but they were not from our communities, and they were not from communities of color. They were not from the folks here who were in the streets, voicing their concerns and trying to stand up for our communities. So the other folks, you know, who, you know, they came in and caused destruction and left. In our community are the ones who are still here and left with picking up the pieces, right?
And taking the blame. And
taking the blame, although some of, you know, we're starting to see that there have been some folks who have been arrested. So it is kind of hitting the media.
they're outside of your local
Right.
community, right? And that's the kind of thing that they don't talk about, like
right. That doesn't make the news.
They won't update all of this and say, hey, instead they let that narrative flow out there that your community did this to itself, and it was really a blow off top from activist groups from outside of your community that came in and wanted to use the situation to capitalize on it and create their destruction or whatever. And I mean, I understand the blow off top on the whole situation, but this needs to be talked about picking up the pieces, who's left with the blame, and what really happened, and the people don't talk about it enough.
Exactly. And they don't talk about like one of the things that I love is in these moments of hardship, as difficult as it is, as much as you don't want to be put in these situations, they are opportunities to see folks come together, to see communities come together. I got to know my neighbors better, in those few months than ever before, because we created neighborhood groups, and folks would go around and walk through the neighborhoods. And I kid you not, like this was throughout the Twin Cities, especially in Minneapolis, but we had neighborhood groups that would walk the alleys and look for there were folks who had planted like cans of gas and just different things to like set garbage cans on fire, and there were things that had been planted throughout the neighborhoods, and many folks found them. And so our neighborhoods came together, and it was really interesting because this is one of the things that it's so hard to explain sometimes, but like when our neighborhood groups would come together and we would talk about what we were looking for in suspicious people and individuals, we were not talking about people of color. We were talking about white men with shaved heads. Like that, those were the suspicious people that we were looking for, because those are the folks who were coming into our neighborhoods and planting some of these things.
Well, yeah, we saw
people from white supremacist groups.
We saw pallets of bricks that were videotaped. Like, what are these doing here? Why are there pallets of bricks in these high energy areas where protests are about to erupt? Why did all of a sudden somebody just stick a pallet of bricks in the middle of a city street corner? I mean, it was just things like that were going on. I saw a lot of videos of that kind of thing that was being spotted. Of course, it wasn't, brought up in the media much, but it was out there. People were wondering why it was there. There was no brickwork going on. Right.
It was very real. And it's interesting to think about, like, and it was very real in Minnesota, where racism for so long has been, it's been here, it's been prevalent. And for communities of color, for Indigenous people, we've known it, we've felt it. And yet it's been something that's been kind of covered up, right? Like Minnesota gets in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, we're on all sorts of lists for best places to live, for health, for education, for all of these different things, unless you're Native or a person of color. If you look at those numbers, they're terrible. And so it's one of those things where we've been living in this, at least in the media, it looks like, racism isn't a big thing in Minnesota. Oh no, it is. It's a big thing. And it's a big thing in Minneapolis. And so when, George Floyd was killed, that was part of, folks in our community saying, we're fed up with this, let's stop pushing things under the rug. Like, it's real. And then it became really real in so many different complicated ways, how it showed up, and continues to show up. Right. And our, I don't know what the kind of aftermath is at this point in time, except to say that we're having conversations here that we didn't have before, which is good. That doesn't mean that things are necessarily better yet, but the fact that these conversations are happening, and that voices are at the table that weren't at the table before, is a big thing. The city of Minneapolis, or not the city of Minneapolis, actually at the state level, the Minnesota House of Representatives issued a proclamation just a few months back declaring racism as a public health issue. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. It's hard to say, but they do have a committee that's focused on this now. And my sister and I actually spoke. We were asked to present specifically on Native issues in connection to public health issues and the connection to racism. And so we did basically a Minnesota Indian History 101 for legislators and other folks a couple months ago, and hoping to do more things like that. Hoping that it leads to something, right? And we'll see. But the fact that this happened here in my city, on Dakota land, it's a big deal. And I'm trying to remain cautiously optimistic, right? Knowing that there have been times we've been asked to the table before and things haven't happened, but hopefully this time will be different. There's definitely a bigger, on a national scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a bigger thing happening. So,
There's definitely hope in the air, I should say.
yes.
Yeah. So Lance is asking about the Indian building that burned, and did they save the documents or some of the documents?
I don't know the details of everything. So that was Muskogee Communications, which is one of the oldest Native nonprofits in the city. Kelly Drummer is their executive director. I know they had just moved into that building. They had done a big campaign and moved into that building, that was really devastating that burned down. And I remember hearing that they were able to get in and get some stuff out in advance, but I honestly don't know exactly what all was lost. It's gone. If you drive up Lake Street, the building is completely gone. So anything that was left would be gone. But I do, from my recollection, they were able to get in when folks were when they knew there was action happening and were able to save some things. It's interesting. One of the storefronts next to them, it was actually, I can't remember, it was like one or two stores down, but in the same building was a restaurant, like a Indian, not feather, like East Indian restaurant. And they, when their restaurant was burning down, actually, no, let me backtrack. Before the restaurant burned down, this was going on for a period of time, right? And so when the protests first started happening, and people were over in that general area, because they were like a block away from the 3rd precinct, that particular everyone else shut down, and that particular restaurant opened up to feed protesters. Oh, wow. So they stayed open to feed people and also to provide medical care for folks who were being hit by rubber bullets we're getting gas and different things. So they stayed open for that. And then unfortunately they ended up being burned down. And we now know they weren't burned down by our communities. They were burned down, that happened because of other people who were looking for just, larger scale destruction. But even when the news hit that they were losing their restaurant, the owner of their restaurant was quoted as saying, "Let it burn. Like, if this is what it takes to get justice, let it burn." And now many of the businesses and nonprofits in that area have banded together, and they're looking at rebuilding. And also they're talking about, my understanding is they're talking about rebuilding and really thinking about like, what are their hopes and dreams of being, like, creating some sort of new structure that's sustainable, environmentally friendly, which is really cool to think about, that they're taking this situation of mass destruction and trying to be hopeful about, like, what would be most beneficial to the community moving forward.
Wow. Yep. Well,
kind of metaphoric for what needs to happen right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, burn it down and rebuild it right. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but You know, it's
People want change.
people
Something's
want
got to
drastic
change.
change. The change part is over. They want drastic change. They want
Yeah.
things. They're tired and done. And that's why I said when I said blow off top, I know that, you know, you have those radical, had enough people that are capitalizing on, you know, we're going to make a serious, like you said, a large statement, you know, and they don't care who pays for it, you know, which is a very, it's not a responsible way to act, but
No.
they are, and it's hurting communities. It's hurting communities that are being, you know, destroyed by this stuff. So knock it off. Knock it off. Not that they're going
And it makes me wonder why we weren't protected. Why weren't those buildings protected? Why wasn't there a police presence or other presence there? And maybe we didn't want that presence there. I mean, I don't know what was going on in the ground, but you know, why weren't community members protected from people from the outside that were coming in? Real community policing
well, there's
would have been their prime goal,
there's
is
chaos
to know who their community was and to protect those that were doing harm, who were coming outside of it, from outside.
Well, one of the things that came out during that time too was community policing. So, you know, and not to say it's perfect, there's a lot of work to be done there too, but our people stood together, right, to go out and protect our organization. So, for example, the American Indian Movement, which was born here in Minneapolis, you know, folks came together. There was a call out for AIM Patrol and for folks to go and stand guard in front of some of the other Native nonprofits and make sure that they would be safe. And it was a scary time, right? Because we didn't know if that was like, is that the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? Like, I don't know. I mean, and you know, especially when during these times of chaos, when you have the National Guard, you know, you have these armed troops coming in, you have these they call them the Boogaloo Boys, like these white supremacists, like folks who are coming in to like create chaos and do it under the guise of, you know, something else. And then you have, you know, folks who are trying to protect their communities, and you have business owners like who are just scared that they're going to lose their business. You know, so this combination of things, you know, it was a pretty chaotic time. And we're seeing, you know, we still are feeling the impacts for sure now. Like we have a lot of buildings that are continue to be boarded up, a lot of stuff that was burned down, but you know, folks are rebuilding, you know, and that's what happens, right? People are coming together, we're rebuilding, making sure that there was a huge push for support, especially because some of the buildings that were burnt down on Lake Street by the 3rd precinct, I mean, they were things like Target and Arby's, like things that a whole bunch of Walgreens were just like destroyed. And at first you're like, well, those are big corporations, they'll just rebuild, it'll be fine. And okay, sure, they have insurance, sure. Like, I don't feel bad for them. I feel bad for the communities who rely on them, right? Like, that's our local pharmacy, that's our local grocery store. Like, that's how we have access to any, like, that's like the only place that's on my bus route, right? And so, and that was the case for many folks in our Native community. And so we did see a lot of folks come together, and you know, there was, you know, a lot of food drives and you know, people coming together and providing services and access to different kinds of products that people would need until things were rebuilt. So. And that's, I mean, that's what happens, right? Something like this happens, and in our community, we respond. We come together. It's what Native people do, right? We're resilient. It sucks. It's shouldn't have to do this, but it's what we do.
Right. Absolutely. And you've got a few examples of where you're bringing people together to make change. And I really want to talk about this story about the change of the lake name and what that was like to get that done. Do you mind shifting and going into that story?
Not at all. I mean, it's I love this story. So I moved out here. Again, I'm Dakota. I live in the homeland of Dakota people. But my reservation is in South Dakota, and yet, like many Native folks, I grew up in urban Native communities. So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, Lincoln, Nebraska, San Francisco Bay Area. We moved around. My dad was a community organizer. He was director of numerous Indian centers across the country, and I didn't know about my connection to Minnesota. And then when I was about 15 years old, I became very frustrated with the fact that I didn't know that I wasn't learning about my people in my in school in our education system, and I dropped out of high school. My twin sister and I both dropped out of high school. Just hated the fact that we were completely invisible in the education system, and we were living in California at the time. Well, fast forward a few years, we both realized that we want to work in our community, we want to serve our community. So we decide, well, you know what, we should go back to school. So we both went back to community college, and during that time realized the importance of really connecting more to. Even though we had grown up in Native communities across the country, we lived in urban Native communities. Those were our people, but we hadn't really lived amongst Dakota people. Like I didn't have a good sense of what it meant to be a Dakota person. I didn't have a connection to place. I didn't feel a connection to home. And my sister and I decided to move back to Minnesota. We were in our early 20s, and we decided to move here because I had done a Google search and found out the University of Minnesota had a really good Dakota language program. And so we came back here. And interestingly enough, my father, his work had closed their office, and so he was able to leave. My mom had lost her job in the Oakland Unified Public School District. And so even though my sister and I didn't live with our parents at the time, our whole family basically picked up from California, moved to Minnesota, our homeland, where none of us had lived. And we shacked up in a hotel for a while until we could figure out a living situation, which was crazy. My parents and two sisters, I think 2 dogs, 2 cats, maybe. Yeah, and we hadn't lived together in years, like we were adults. But we lived in a hotel for a while, and then got it all figured out. And my sister and I went back to school, studied the language. I became a language teacher for a while. So did my sister. And through that experience, we learned about our connection to Minnesota through learning the language, through learning the place names, and the importance of how those place names represented our connection, not only to most important to the land, but also to one another. It was this complete shift, both for my sister and I, again, who we had both dropped out of high school at 15. I ended up, after making this shift, going on to law school at a really good law school here in Minnesota. My sister is now Dr. Kate Bean. She got a PhD. She's the director of Native American Initiatives at the Minnesota Historical Society. And her dissertation, her work is focused on Dakota history and connection to place. And the fact that the language and our connection to place and to place names was part of what helped us figure out our role and our place in this world was huge. And so that's why I start with that. I know you asked about Bde Maka Ska, but I feel like I have to provide some context.
This is what we like to hear.
Okay,
we like to hear everybody's stories.
Our family, so again, we come from here. So I'm less than a mile from Bde Maka Ska. Bde Maka Ska is where my family had a village in the 1830s. My grandfather, Makpiawichasha Cloudman, and my grandmother, Champaduthawi, chairwoman, led a village, an agricultural village, which was called Cheate Otui, or Village to the Side. And a lot of people more people know now here, but previously a lot of people didn't know about this. And when we moved here, it was the first place my sister and I went, because we knew that our family had a connection to this lake. Bde Maka Ska, formerly known as Lake Calhoun, is the largest lake in Minneapolis. It's the most visited lake in Minneapolis. If you come here and if you drive through town, you'll see it. It's always busy. There's always people around there. It's a pretty wealthy, primarily, white upper class neighborhood, lots of big houses, lots of businesses around there. And so when we first came here, we went there, and at first we didn't feel that connection. And then again, once we started learning our language and connecting it to the history, as we understood it, we started to see a connection, right? It started to click. Thankfully our family, so one of my grandfathers is Charles Eastman. I'm actually named after him. I'm CARLY Eastman. And he wrote quite a bit about our connection to Minnesota. So we're very blessed to have kind of that history that's been documented. And so we really focused on learning as much as we could about that connection. And then when we did, and the fact that it helped us so much, we realized we need to give back. Like other people need to know this. And so that really is what led to my sister and her work. And for me, with my work, from teaching the language to I became an attorney, worked in child protection, was really focused on trying to help Native kids and Native families. The language, the cultural identity piece, I guess, is what has always stuck with me, and I know for my sister too, along the way. And then a few years ago, this was actually 5 years ago now, back in 2015, my sister and I both got asked to sit on Minneapolis Park Board Community Advisory Committee. It's called a CAC. And basically they have these groups of 25 to 30 people that they bring into a room to talk about coming up with a recommendation for things that the park board should think about for the next 20 years. Mm-hmm. And at this particular CAC, they were looking at Bde Maka Ska, which they called Lake Calhoun. And they didn't know. One park board member asked me, and another park board member asked my sister. They didn't know that we were sisters. We have different last names. I have my husband's last name. But we knew that they had, as far as we knew, they had never had a Native person at all on a CAC. Their CACs, these committees usually consist of wealthy white residents around the lakes. And so because this lake in particular that they were talking about was very important to our family, we both just decided to do it. And we ventured into this relationship with the Minneapolis Park Board. Now, this process with them was only supposed to take about 9 months. Ended up taking over 2 years. And not only that, but the issue of the lake name was not on their agenda. They were thinking about things like trails, fixing the benches, do we have enough restrooms, water quality, really important things. But they weren't thinking about the name of the lake at all. And when we first started coming to these meetings and bringing up the issue of the name, when we started, we didn't have any support. The park board thought the board members thought we were crazy. The other committee members thought we were wasting everybody's time. And it was really frustrating, but we stuck with it. And we kept asking to be put on the agenda and asking for the opportunity to tell our story. And they gave us that opportunity. And what ended up happening was once they started learning about the history of Dakota people at Bde Maka Ska, once we started telling them about the history of Dakota people in Minnesota, that our people had been exiled from the state after the War of 1862, that previous to that, that we had lived at Bde Maka Ska, that wild rice used to grow there, that there were wild strawberries, and that it, all of that, that our people had a village there, that we, in the time that we lived there, that we fed neighboring villages, and that the 10-year span that we lived there, nobody starved, which was huge during that time period, that nobody starved. When we started sharing these things, people were blown away. And they finally started listening to what we were telling them about the importance of Dakota presence. And not only that, but the issue with the name. On top of that, we asked for an equity. So the park board had asked us to use an equity lens with making recommendations. And we said to them, like, well, we don't think we know, none of us have a really good understanding of what that really means. And we're not all on the same page. And what is it, like, what do you want us to do with that? And we made a recommendation. We came forward and said, let us create an equity subcommittee, and you pay for a nonprofit organization that's focused on racial equity to help us with this work. And again, like this work my sister and I are doing, this is all volunteer. We're young mothers. We both had multiple kids throughout this whole time. It's evenings and weekends. But it was important to us. And so we asked for an equity subcommittee so we could have even more meetings and we would be given even more time. And the park board agreed. And they hired an organization called Voices for Racial Justice, which is a great organization here in Minneapolis. That was at the time run by Bde Maka, who's now with Race Forward and doing some great work over there. But they basically went around the city of Minneapolis and brought together Hmong, Somali, African American, like different folks from different ethnicities and demographics. They had relationships with these nonprofit organizations, and they brought folks together. And we came together and had listening sessions and said, what would make you feel more welcome at this lake? And let us tell you some of our stories about, our connections. And what ended up happening from all of that work was communities of color, particularly immigrant communities, ended up strongly coming forward and saying, we got to change the name of this lake. They said the number one, they were like, yes, we need all of these things. We need access to restrooms. We need access to public transportation. We need, and we listed them and we gave them all of that information in a really nice report. But they said, number one thing we need is you got to get rid of this guy Calhoun. Because I don't know, I think more people know now than they did then, but at the time it wasn't as well known that John C. Calhoun was an incredibly racist person. He was a South Carolina senator. He founded the BIA, or one of the founding members of the BIA. He drafted the Indian Removal Act. He was vice president under Andrew Jackson. I mean, this guy was no friend of Native folks, and he was no friend to people of color in general. He was a huge proponent of slavery, not just in keeping it, but expanding it. And when we shared that with folks in our folks we were trying to build allyship with, they right away were like, oh, we got your back. Right? They're like, no, this is not right. And so, number one, they wanted to change the name, but then when we told them the Dakota name, when we told them the Dakota stories, we told them our history and our connections to this place and what had happened to us, people were just like, it was like this aha moment where they were like, okay, this is what needs to happen. And then they showed up. So basically, this resulted in us making some recommendations to the park board, lots of public hearings. with packed houses, which was great. They had never had this before. Packed houses, people showing up with signs from all different communities, school kids showing up from different communities saying that this is important in order for us all to feel welcome and to feel like this is our home. We want to see our Native brothers and sisters recognized. And so that happened at the park board level back in, oh my goodness, 2017, I want to say. And then it took it took some time to get through basically, we had to go through multiple layers of government for this to happen. So it started with the park board making a recommendation, but they didn't have the power to actually change the name. And we knew that, but we also knew that they were basically the recognized stewards of the lake. And so anyone who did have the power would look to them. So that's why we started with them. And then they, again, when we started, weren't on board with us. At the end, we had a unanimous vote of support from the park board, saying that this was important and why this was important. We had park board staff who, when we had started, told us that we were wasting their time. We had park board staff who had said that to us, who then retired and then came back and volunteered their time to come and provide public testimony and share why this experience had changed their perspective and their understanding of place and equity. And so we got it through the park board. And then our goal was to get the park board's support. And we got it. And so then we knew that we were going to have to go to the county level. We're going to have to ask, file a petition with the county, and then it would go to the State Department of Natural Resources and then the feds. And that was just that was the process that was laid out for us, which was a lot of hoops to jump through. Initially, we were told that there wasn't any way this could happen. And when we said, well, give us worst case scenario, what are all the things we would have to do? They gave us that, and that's what we did. And so we did the park board level, and then we thought we were still going to have to file a petition with the county. The park board actually went ahead and filed the petition themselves. So they didn't only make the recommendation, but they took action, which was really cool. So they filed the petition, and then we had to go to we had to do a bunch of public hearings at the county level and meet with county commissioners. And then that went through, and then it went through the state. And then the federal government also, obviously, eventually followed suit. But then what ended up happening was there was a very small group of wealthy residents who started calling themselves Save Lake Calhoun, and they filed a petition they filed a petition first in district court, then it went to the Court of Appeals and eventually up to the state Supreme Court. Basically, they said that the process we used was incorrect, was not legal. They made a statutory basically a statutory argument because there was a statute that said if the lake was named something more than 40 years, that the state DNR didn't have the authority to change the name, and so that's what they based their argument on. And so this little idea that we came to the park board with back in 2015, that we thought we had accomplished in 2018, took another 2 years to go through the courts. And then finally, just this past, what was it? I want to say May, maybe, of this year, the Supreme Court found in our favor, and it's done. And Bde Maka Ska, it will be now forever known as Bde Maka Ska. And our process was deemed to not only be legitimate, but now it's clarified. And so I'm excited because now we have a clear avenue to do more things like this down the road.
So it's a model now.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's huge. So from day one until May, how long was that? 2 years?
5 years.
5 years. So
Mm-hmm.
to get that going. And so what is that? I loved how you talked about it, Carly, because you're so positive and uplifting for one thing.
Oh, it was hard.
Well, and
Yeah.
because, you know, I'm looking at it. First, you're the crazy Indian. You know, anyone who wants to support changes of names or you know, we're not your mascot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not celebrate the destroyers and the rapists. You know, you start saying that, you're the crazy Indian. And then you have to gather the world together to tell them how racist what's happening is.
Right, because we're not enough.
Yes, we can't say it in our own. We have to get, you know, everyone else involved. It's a really frustrating job, and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you continued and even through the court cases went through and were successful is incredible. Is not surprising that you would be successful, but it's incredible because of all of the hoops that you have to jump through for something that you would think would be common sense, that the state would first off say, oh my God, what a wonderful opportunity to really educate about our place, this place that we all enjoy here, instead of some, like, you know, racist guy's name from, you know, a couple hundred years back. I mean,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, the fact that the challenges, the barriers that were put in front of us were so incredibly racist.
Yeah.
And some of them were more obviously racist to some than others, but they were all racist. So, you know, for example, one barrier that we're still dealing with is that the name is too hard to say. Bde Maka Ska, that it's too hard to say. Never mind the fact that my grandparents met in boarding school, that my father didn't learn the language because my grandparents were you know, didn't want to pass it on to him because they were afraid, right? And they wanted him to be successful, and they thought the language would be harmful. And then, like, his children are fighting, like we're fighting to learn our language and to bring it back, and our father is so proud of us for that, you know. But it's hard, and yet people are saying, oh, you know, these 3 words are too hard to say. And so what
that was really argument. That was really argument.
That was the number one argument. The number one argument was that it was too hard to say, and continues to be from neighborhood organizations even who don't want to change their names. And I kid you not, one of the part of the name that people have the hardest time with is Bde. Bde, which is our word for lake, because they say it reminds them of the French word for toilet. Like, the fact that they would put precedence over their familiarity with a word for toilet over the fact that this is the indigenous language of this land.
Yeah, you should have told them,
lake,
if you can't speak the language, you should get out.
Right?
Right.
So no, what we did was at every hearing, my sister's daughter, who was when we started, she was about 3 at the time. Her job became teaching people how to say Bde Maka Ska. So she would come up either with my sister or with me to the podium, and whether it was the park board or the county commissioners or some other public hearing, she would walk people through saying Bde Maka Ska. And then we would say, see, if a 3-year-old can say it, so can you. And it made a difference. It really did. Like, people, it created, like, you know, people thought it was fun and whatever, like, and park board or whoever it was, folks who were the ones saying it was hard to say, like, how do you argue with that? Like, a 3-year-old just taught you how to say it. Come on. And then we would share our stories about, you know, everything that our people had been through, and the fact that we were fighting to save our language. And the fact that, I mean, here's the thing, my sister's a historian. We had all sorts of historical information to back this up too. One of our first Dakota language dictionaries was written at Bde Maka Ska. Missionaries came to our village and wrote down words in our language. And one of the introductions for one of these dictionaries actually says, this is to capture a language that will one day disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And now our people are using these documents to fight to save our language, to hold on to our cultural identity. And so we would try to make we would share that information and then try to make the connection with the fact that Minneapolis has one of the lowest graduation rates for Native students in the country. In the country. Home of the American Indian movement, so much amazing history, so many cool organizations, a lot of cool stuff happening, and yet like this is a problem. Why is that? And we would make that connection to the fact that this is a bigger issue, right? And that we all have to come together around this. And when we talk to the kids in our communities, what they say is that they want connection to culture, they want connection to language, they want to see it visible, they feel invisible. And I felt that when I was 15 years old, right? I can relate to that. So we would try to help make those connections for folks. And we continue to, we're not done by any means. We were successful with the name restoration. But as we know, there's still so much work to be done. We saw it. It's interesting. One of the lead plaintiff in the Save Lake Calhoun, the folks who are fighting against the name restoration, his name is Tom Austin. He's a venture. They call him a venture capitalist. And he owns a home over by Bde Maka Ska, which he was trying to sell it, and he put it up, and he refused to call it Bde Maka. Yeah. Anyway, that same the fact that we went through all of this work, got the name restoration to happen. We still couldn't get many of the businesses around Bde Maka Ska still wouldn't change their names. A couple of them did. And we had one who actually changed their name right away and then came and provided testimony. He was fantastic. He had owned Calhoun Cycles and now Perennial Cycles. They're amazing small business. But many of the larger, because this is a very well-populated, high business, high traffic area, they didn't want to change their names. They saw it as this was going to cost them money and marketing issues and whatever. But then after George Floyd was killed, this issue came up again about around the names of people who are known to have supported slavery. And that's when we started seeing Columbus statues coming down. So when that started happening, the issue came back up again. And since that time, many, if not most of those businesses have now started changing their names.
Good.
Wow.
Good job.
Yeah.
And it's a model of how the process is working, That's great.
But it's interesting also what kind of pressure it takes to create change.
Right.
And it's not easy. And to keep up, a positive attitude and, oh man, that's really hard. I need to hang out with you more, Carly, so some of this can rub off on me, some of this optimism and such a great thing that you and your sister in the community did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hats off.
Good
job.
Yes. Now it looks like Carly's frozen. Carly, I don't know if you can hear us, but it's a nice little photo of you.
It is. It is kind of. She looks very peaceful and
relaxing.
Sweet. If you can hear us, Carly, you might have to kick out and then kick back in. Try it that way.
Yeah. Let's see if let's take her off. It looks like she's still frozen there for a little bit. Wow. That's an incredible.
Just finished her story and it froze.
And it froze. I don't know if somebody's trying to tell us.
Oh, maybe they're watching us again, Shannon.
Oh no, it's that venture capitalist guy she was talking about. What an asshole.
There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them out there.
And it's such a beautiful place out there. I've got to
well, that's where our family and friends are at too, out there
Yeah.
in Shakopee.
Yeah.
And
we love to talk about Shakopee. Hey, we're all wondering, whether you made a video for
TikTok.
TikTok.
Well, I attempted one. Just to let you know, I attempted one.
Attempted one?
I attempted, and I wasn't happy with it. So I was like, no way, I am not doing this. So I tried to be funny. So now I think I'm going to have to try something more serious because that didn't work. I was not going to show that.
Oh yeah, it's your sense of humor, right?
Yeah, my sense of humor is a little twisted.
I'm gonna show you. So while we're on the thinking about TikTok. So next Saturday, the 21st, the association is having its 98th annual membership meeting and a showcase of young and emerging Native artists. And guess where we're pulling some of those young Native artists from?
TikTok, baby.
TikTok. So
Native TikTok.
Well, we're waiting for our guest to pop back up. Let me share with you the Facebook ad. So it'll be on Facebook Live. And let's see, here we are. It's called Envisioning Our Future, the 98th annual membership meeting. And I wanted to, let's see, where is it?
You get a 3-year-old to tell him, Lance. That's anyway. He asked how do you say the name? It was Bde Maka Ska.
Bde Maka Ska. You got it. So envisioning our future. So these are I don't know if you can see them too well.
Yeah, I see them. Hey, I know a couple of them actually. I follow Patrick and I follow Ryan Young. Yep.
Well, and Raquel is the what is her YouTube channel? She looks
familiar too.
Yeah, she's really funny. So we've got
Quinones, right?
Yeah. We've got Sienna, who's a comedian and writer. Ryan is an artist, I think. Isn't he he is a
dancer, fancy dancer.
Ryan?
Yeah.
Ryan, fancy dancer?
Oh no, not Ryan. Patrick. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Patrick is a Navajo, right? Is that what it's called? So we're gonna have those folks.
He was Patrick's a hoop dancer. I'm sorry, he's not a fancy dancer. He's a hoop dancer.
Yes. And then Kimberly Guerrero, who's been our guest on here before, who's an actress. Tommy Orange, who's a writer. And Sean Taylor Corbett, who's another actor, are going to help us host this event on Saturday. And then on Sunday, so during Red Hoop Talk, these artists and our Kimberly and Tommy and Sean are going to come on Red Hoop Talk, and we're going to all kind of have a chat. So it's going to be cool.
Oh, that's going to be cool. Yeah. My TikTok buddies are going to be on the show with us.
Hey, I think Carly's back on. Should we try to bring her back up?
Bring her back up. Carly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you back.
Okay, good. Sorry about that.
The government got you.
Yeah, it was down. Great wrap up, and then you kind of ended on this and just froze. It was perfect.
Yeah. No, you were saying some really nice things about how we should hang out more. I caught that.
Yes, that we should hang out more so I can.
But only in the summertime. Yeah. I wouldn't want to go up there in the wintertime.
Oh, I love the snow. I love snow.
Not up there though. Oh my goodness.
Up there, man.
No, that's like that white stuff all over the ground.
Hey, we are hardy people.
You got that right. You hardy.
See, this is part of it, though. We can get through a lot because we are such hardy people. That's part of it.
I'm a Southern boy. We don't know what that white stuff is.
Well, and that's what's so funny, because I lived in California and Arizona for so long. And then when you actually move somewhere where there's seasons,
yes.
weather.
We do have seasons. We have summer. We have
I
summer.
lived in California, Phoenix, Arizona, and I missed the seasons. I have to say, I missed the fall. I missed the winter. In California, it was like rain or no rain.
Yeah,
that was kind of it.
For like 3 years at a time. Then we have no rain for like 10 years, and then we have like rain and no rain for.
Right. But I have to say, part of how I'm able to say so optimistic is because I have a wonderful close circle of people that I can vent with, an amazing family, like my sister. She works for a colonial institution and is trying to make some change. That's really hard to do. And so we talk all the time. We're both mothers to young kids. We help each other when we can. It's especially hard during COVID, but we're in our own little we're part of our little bubble where we help each other take care of our kids, and that's how we get through it, right? Is to rely on that close circle, because this is tough stuff, and there's no way that anybody should be expected to be able to handle this kind of stuff on their own. But the fact that we come from communities where we can support each other and be a sounding board and lift each other up, like that's what it's all about for me.
Yep. And now with the internet, we can do things like we're doing now and get the word out and disseminate the information and the process.
Exactly.
Your talk right now might have just now inspired somebody, or this video might land on somebody's lap one day, and it might inspire them to see the process of how they need to go out and do this. Like the little things, like you said, your 3-year-old was up there teaching people how to speak the language and how easy it was. Little things like that are important in processes like this, and people need to see the roadmap. And that's cool that we got to put that on the public record, so it's there now. People can see it.
And knowing that, like, you don't let up. Like when we first started this, we were initially told there is no process because of this statutory issue that ended up going to the Supreme Court. We weren't caught by surprise by that. We knew it in the beginning that there was a statutory issue, but we talked to attorneys and folks at different government levels and came up with a process that we thought, well, worst case scenario, what do we need to do? And we did all of those things. And so then by the time that issue came up, we were prepared for it. Yeah. Right.
And don't give up, because right is right.
Don't give up. Like keep going. Know how to ask the right questions, get the right people involved, and things can happen. This is the part of what was so powerful about what we did was this was democracy in action. We had the public come together. We started with like nothing, and I wouldn't say nothing. We always had our community behind us. That is not nothing, but we started with a small population, and we ended up with like a lot of people talking about this and advocating for this, and that was only because we were able to get out there and share our stories. And so that piece too, just the importance of storytelling, the importance of sharing your personal stories, helping folks to connect to issues on a human level,
exactly,
is huge.
That's what I drew from it, was that people just needed to hear the story, and that changes perspective, and then at that point the process can start to change the decisions that have been made. But it takes that story, that human story, and what it, why is this process even necessary, and telling the story and laying that out there for why it's necessary for, other human beings to feel honored and important, and that they matter, versus, why on earth do we continue to honor and put importance on evil things, or things that are destroyed, or things that are not bringing unity, are not bringing other cultures back into the fold, not bringing diversity? Why on earth would we continue to let that process exist in our nation, in our lives, period, in people's lives? Why would we allow that? So right, the way I see it is right is right. And as long as you continue to persist, right will prevail. Just like, just like the mascot issue that we've been talking about lately. It took them years and years and years of banging on it. And until that iron is hot enough or whatever, it's not going to bend until it's time. Mm-hmm. But it was consistent and persistent. We're resilient people. Resilient people. We haven't given up. We haven't gone away, and we're continuing to bang on those things.
Absolutely.
I love it.
And one of the things that we found was when we started, the people who would speak out against us would actually didn't show up to public hearings. They didn't show up and stand in front of us and say these things. Most often they wrote in, or they would show up in the comment section of the local newspaper. That's where, they say don't ever read the comments. That's where we read them, because that's where we got a good understanding of what all of our challenges were, right? Oh, it's hard to say. Okay, well, we know how to address that. Oh, you try to say we're changing history? No, we're not. We're truth telling. Like, that's how we got an understanding of what our arguments were going to be against, it's how we knew what their arguments were going to be, so we could address them. But another thing we found was, as this process moved along, and as we did more work to educate the public and help folks understand about why this was important, eventually we didn't have to address the comment section anymore. Mm-hmm. People would start responding on their own. We had the public answering them and advocating on behalf of Bde Maka Ska, and making our arguments for us and saying, like, no, this is why this is important. And that was not the case early on, but after a few years, we saw that happening, which was really, really cool. And it was a really cool way to know that we were making progress on a broader level too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And just think of all the people. Have they changed the names? I mean, are their
oh yeah
names are all changed and
yep.
physically and everything?
Yeah, so back in 2018, I think it was January 2018, there was a ceremony where the signs were all changed out. And at the time, my son was a baby, and it was freezing. I mean, it was Minnesota winter, so it was freezing. And we've got pictures of us out there, me holding a drill, holding him and my carrier, and like trying to drill those signs in. We had Uncle Art Owen from Prairie Island, who has since passed, came and did a prayer and sang some songs. It was an amazing event. We actually, the day started with students from Center School, which is an alternative school, who showed up. And this was like super early in the morning on a freezing cold January day. But these students from this alternative school, I mean, these are students who weren't able to, basically were kicked out or told that they weren't doing well in regular public school, and so they were put into this other school system or whatever. They came, and their focus is more on cultural identity and like trying to help them understand who they are, right, and help them succeed in different ways. Those students actually, we didn't ask for this. Like they came around, they smudged the entire space. They came up and thanked us for being there. They took pictures. They were all taking selfies in front of the signs. It was really cool, right? Like that was another sign, right? That what we did was, or what we were doing was important, and that it wasn't just important for us. It wasn't just important for our family. It was important for Native kids, Dakota kids, Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk. All sorts of kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, incredible! Such a great story, and it proves that it only takes a couple of people to get the ball rolling. It was you and your sister. You got the ball rolling, and it must have been a trip.
Yeah,
traveling around with your dad, like being a product of a family who that's what you do. That's what you do. You're an advocate. You're an activist, and you've manifested it so quickly. what was, I want to talk about Native ways. I'm looking at the time. It's like all these questions I want to ask you are popping up. I mean, I'd love to hear more about your dad and what that was like growing up. And how has that shaped what you want for your family?
Right.
And then I want to talk about Native ways.
Yeah, let's hear what else you can do besides renaming lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep busy. Yeah, I'll try to share a little bit more than I do have to go, and not too long. I can hear my son in the other room getting a little restless. But yeah, growing up with a dad who was a community organizer and was so focused on community was huge. I mean, that's a huge part of who I am, and how I approach not just the work, because to me, I don't compartmentalize. It's how I approach the world, right? And my relationship with people, and with communities. And it's been a huge, very influential in how I've approached my career, right? So I went from graduating from college. I was a Dakota language teacher for a while, and then I started. I actually started with I was looking at, or I was doing some lobbying work advocating for Indigenous language revitalization, and I came to realize how many folks, or how often folks were referring us to their attorneys. And so I became interested in, I was like, well, I want to understand that language. Like I could understand like how to talk about the heart of what we were trying to do. But I didn't understand like how to put it onto paper in this language and how to connect with folks in that way. And so I was like, well, I want to at least be able to translate it and understand it. So I decided to go to law school. And that's something that my father really encouraged himself. He said it was one of the things that if he had kind of to do it over again, it was one of the things that he would probably have done. And so I did that, and then ended up working in child protection for a while, on different ends of the table, from representing families, representing children, to the county. I actually worked at the Hennepin County Attorney's Office for a little bit, and throughout all of that, became very disenfranchised with the child protection system in Hennepin County, well, in general, but in particular in Hennepin County. And I was looking for something different. I was looking for a different way to utilize the skills and the experiences that I had to best represent my people. I mean, that's always been my goal. And I started praying about it. And this opportunity, I mean, I kid you not, like I started praying about it. I reached out to somebody who was a mentor, and we prayed together. And the next day, I was getting all these emails for this opportunity in philanthropy. And that's what led to my work at the Bush Foundation. So I got all these, I knew that there's an opportunity to work in an organization which was well respected for their work in Indian country, but which was focused on, there was an opportunity to increase the money that was going to be going out into Native nonprofits, and to understand how that, my whole thing has been navigating systems and understanding systems, even with Bde Maka Ska. Like that was my role. My sister's role as the historian, and we're twins, so this is how we worked. This is how we work together. Her role was the history and the facts, and part of those stories. And my role was understanding the system, navigating the system. And then we come together and we figure out how everything works together. And so that's how we're able to make stuff happen. And so with philanthropy, I wanted to, both with the law and then with philanthropy, I wanted to understand the system. I wanted to understand, like, how does this work? And so I started working at the Bush Foundation. I worked there for 6 years, and learned a lot. I learned a lot about the field. Again, like it's a lot of frustration too, right? I mean, when you look at the numbers, there's, what is it? It's less than 0.5%. It's like 0.4% of large foundation dollars go to Native communities. And that's just what we know that is tagged as going to Native communities. That's not even, like, if you want to say like how much is actually going to Native nonprofits, it's even lower.
Right.
And not only that, but we know for a fact that the largest grant dollars, I'm talking like over $400,000, including this multi-million-dollar investments, those are going to non-Native organizations who say that they're doing work on behalf of Native organizations or on behalf of Native communities. That's a problem. And so I came to understand this more as I was working within a foundation, and was more and more frustrated by it. And then this opportunity came up for Native Ways. So basically, this past April, I moved into this position. So it's still somewhat new to me. But our mission is to activate and advance informed giving to nonprofits in Indian country through donor education and advocacy. So we're really focused on supporting Native nonprofits. We were established by 7 national nonprofits who have a shared focus on the importance of increasing support for investments in Indian country directly via supporting Native-led nonprofits, but also through educating and strengthening the sector to hold ourselves accountable. And so thank you for pulling this up, Shannon. So these are our 7 founding
look what number 3 is.
Association is on there.
Oh.
So these are some amazing organizations who came together, and actually, these organizations came together over 10 years ago and started talking about these issues, and have been working on them through different channels. But it hasn't been until just recently that we've had the philanthropic support to really kind of take off, right? To buckle down and create, really allow Native Ways to be its own entity, to do this work. So I'm the executive director now. And I'm trying to move forward and represent these founding organizations, and try to build and support the Native nonprofit sector, as well as do some work, continue to do this work in holding philanthropy accountable for their role.
Yeah. Yes.
Very nice.
Weird monster, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think everybody is full. and it's often steeped with the same sort of institutional racism and ideas about who Native people, who poor people and others are. And it's been very difficult to translate as a Native organization to the big money foundations.
Right.
Hey, this is what we need. This is the kind of projects we have, and how the money can help us do this. But those projects, the way we want to help our people is not how. Can you explain that a little better, CARLY? Because
it's messed up, right? Like the nonprofit industrial complex, like the way philanthropy, our people are the original philanthropists. We know we have always known to take care of each other. We come from a culture of reciprocity and generosity, and the greatest leaders in our communities were those who gave away the most, not those who hoarded and had the most.
Right.
And so that's the philosophy that that's where we come from. And yet our Native nonprofits, as our other nonprofits, are restricted by this larger, by capitalism and by this larger philanthropic model, where power dynamics are just they're huge, and the folks who have accumulated the wealth, won't acknowledge where that wealth came from, which is off the backs of brown and indigenous people, right? And off of our communities. And the fact that they won't acknowledge that and then expect us to have to come in front of them and beg for money, right? Like that concept it's inhumane. And you know, as somebody who has worked within philanthropy, I can tell you that there are people who know that, and there are many people who don't, who haven't even thought about that. And when you say that to them, it's like, wait, what? No, you know, and so that's what so that's part of where like the work that we're doing is so important. Like we have to educate people and do it in a way where folks, you know, and again, I come from from this experience of I worked at a foundation. Like I had colleagues who really didn't understand or didn't know the history of our people or of philanthropy and of that complicated relationship. And once we started talking about it, we started seeing progress. Right? Like we have to have that conversation because we have a lot of good people who are working in these places and they don't get it. I mean, we do have folks who have heard it and don't want to hear it for sure. But we also have folks who I think can become our allies. And we have to get more Native people into those roles too. Like I'm also a big advocate for that, even though I left philanthropy for this job. I do still think we need to get more Native people in those roles to help folks understand, because there's so much opportunity. If we can just get folks talking, communicating, and changing some behavior, and we don't know everything that needs to happen, but we know quite a few things that need to happen. Like we have quite a few recommendations that have already been put out there, that Native nonprofits, that Native Americans in Philanthropy, that other Native program officers have been putting forward. And part of the problem, huge part of the problem, is that we just don't have the audience, right? Like the world of philanthropy, the foundation world is so big and they're so powerful, and they have so many things they're working on, that we only have so many, we've only had so many opportunities to get their attention, right? But we're living in a time right now where this is the time to get their attention, because of so many things that are happening. And people are starting to listen. You know, we have all of these, as much as you can critique and should critique the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts that are happening out in the philanthropic and corporate world. Like, we're all glad that they're happening, but then we're also like, and to what end? Like, what are they actually doing? But especially right now with like COVID and with, you know, George Floyd's murder, it does seem to be like, it does seem to me anyway, like there is this opportunity. People are listening a little bit more, or their eyes are a little bit more open, or they're frustrated a little bit more, to the point of maybe there's an entryway, right? And so that's where I'm kind of operating at this point is, you know, I don't know, like, it's not that any of these issues are new. Nothing that we're talking about is new. These have always been issues in our communities. There's always been a need in our communities. The dynamics with philanthropy have always existed. But hopefully we're at a time where folks are and then we see it with the election too, right? Where, well, that could go either way, right? But
no,
I do think that there is a group of people who are frustrated, and who want to see change. And so those are the folks that we're hoping to engage with, and see if we can make some stuff happen.
Yeah, for sure. Lance is asking, can a tribal casino have a nonprofit sector? Well, many casinos actually provide charitable contributions to Native nonprofits and other nonprofits within their region. Because, by the way, Indian gaming is the most regulated gaming there is in the world. So no other type of gaming is regulated like Indian gaming is. And it requires tribes to spend all profits on tribal governance or charitable purposes. So that money that casinos are getting are helping not only their people, but it's also going to charity. A lot of times, a lot of the like Northwestern gaming facilities, they do a lot of local giving. So they help to build up their communities. And you see that around casinos where it's really there's this sharing of the wealth that's going on from.
Absolutely. And there's also some tribes also do have I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's seven so some tribes have 501c3s that are connected to them. And then there's also there's a statutory subdivision of there's a status that tribes can create an organizations under. I thought it was, is it 78? I feel, but I'll find out what it is. Is it 7841? It's so for tribes that want to create an organization but don't want to designate a 501c3 status because they don't want to be limited by the state requirements for reporting reasons and whatnot. There is a tribal designation. The problem is, and I was just on a conversation with folks about this last week, the problem is it's not 501c3, because it is a separate thing. Many foundations don't understand what it is and don't recognize it. So then they won't fund it. But what I'm trying to push on is that's an issue with we need to get them to change. Foundation, if the fact is, if a tribe has a charitable giving entity that is legal under IRS guidelines, that should be good. We should be good to go. The fact that foundations don't understand it, that's on the foundations.
They want that easy check the box.
Right. So, but we need to get them to change their ways, so that we shouldn't have to keep running back to the legislature and changing things to fit in their box, when actually we're good to go. They're the ones that actually need to change how they're responding and acting.
Yep, because tribes are sovereign in and of themselves. They can serve as a 501c3, but they can also pass laws to create different types of organizations, right?
Exactly.
So there are many tribal orgs that are organized under Navajo law or other tribal laws instead of a state under their nonprofit laws, and they can be 501c3 certified, from what I understand, right?
Right. They can be 501c3 certified, or they can be certified under the tribe, which is a different designation. Native Ways Federation, we're incorporated under Navajo Nation. We're actually, the only reason we're looking now at registering in Minnesota is because we're looking at moving payroll, because now I live in Minnesota. So that gets into some other details. But previous to having an employee in Minnesota, we haven't needed to be registered under a state.
Yeah. Isn't it great? What nonprofits have to do to run legitimately is huge burden, and takes a lot of dollars to even just run the operations of a nonprofit with all the state and local tax. All right, we won't go there. Roy, ask a question that's not all.
No, it's okay. You can go ahead and get all technical on it and everything. That's all right. Go ahead, get all legalese. But I really like Carly's process, and I think that she's nailed it by by getting in front of people and telling them the story that needs to be told. I think that's what's important, because, I mean, I know there's bad humans out there, but there's good ones too, that, just like she said, that don't know. They don't know the story. They don't know the history. They don't even understand that there's something wrong until they understand that something's wrong and what it's doing to other people. And then it's those people that you bring in as allies, with that have enough compassion to want to help. And that's when the process gets moved along even further, because there's more momentum, there's more energy, there's more help and money and all those other things that go along with that. So I think that it's important that the story is told in a passionate way, that speaks to who we are and what this really means to us. Because, place means something to I guess we can call pop culture America, or whatever you want to call it, whatever doesn't belong to Indian country, I can just call it, because place is important to us. We all know how important place is. When I go home, there's a whole different thing going on when I go home. When I go back to Louisiana, when I'm on our tribal lands, when I'm there, I'm connected to it in a different way than I am out here in California. Period. End of story. Now, I have respect for this place and for the first people of this land. But it's just not my place. It's somebody else's place, and it's important to them, and I'm here to help protect that and their right to do so. But when I go home, and I feel, as a Native person, place is very, very important to me. And it was explained to me too, that feeling, because Shannon and I have a mentor that we talk about often that was from Shakopee out there in your area. And you may know the Bryant family. I don't know, you may have worked with them, but they adopted us into their family, and he's a Lakota Dakota, and he was our mentor, and he explained that feeling to me, because I went back home for the first time, and I told him that about, how I felt and what that meant to me, and I couldn't understand it. Wish when I put my feet in the dirt and felt that connection. And he explained place, and we had a long talk about it. And I've heard it explained all out through Indian country. And it's just something that's different, inherently different with us. And place means something to us differently. And we need to explain that to others, that, hey, it's not just a name or getting rid of a racist person's history that wronged us and us striking back. This place is important to us, and having the proper name of this place is important to us in the bottom of our souls, in our hearts. And that's a story that needs to be told, because it's not just the story, but it's how the story is interpreted and what it really means to us as Native people, because the cultures are different. And as long as it's laid out there and people understand it, for instance, Mount Rushmore. People, I have this talk with people about the Pasapas a lot. It's like, well, why would Native people go and desecrate that place and urinate on the faces of the and this and that and do those things? And why were they so mad about it? It's a beautiful monument, and it's respectful. But they don't, when I sit them down and I explain to them, I say, think of that as being a Mount Sinai to the Christians, and somebody going and defacing it with Hitler's face. Imagine the brevity of that and what that would mean to the world if they saw that. That's what's happening there. That's what's going on with those people in their hearts, that their souls. That's the damage that's been done to them. And that story is not being told, and it's not being told with the passion that we all feel about that. And as soon as people start to understand that and see that more and see us talk about these things like that, then I think that we're going to see more of a shift. And now we have platforms to do so. Before, it was just in courtrooms where, Native people walked in and walked out, and nobody ever heard the stories that they were telling to the legislators and those things, and the stories weren't out there in the books, in the schools, and all of those things. Well, now we have a platform. In the last couple of decades here, where people can hear our stories, hear our souls, hear why we are who we are, and why we believe in what we believe in. And so you've tapped into something, wonderful. And I think that's what it really is all about, is just getting that story in front of as many people as possible so they can understand,
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's 100%. And it's also, it's helping them understand both the painful aspects and the positive aspects. And that's something where, I've for non-Native people, they can learn the painful aspects. They will never fully understand them, right? There's no way they can, but they need to learn them. They need to hear it. And for some of the positive pieces, like some of those things they can feel, like the fact that I've had so many people come up to me and say, now that when I go to Bde Maka Ska, it's different. It's richer. The fact that I know it's Indigenous language, the name in the Indigenous language, I feel like I have a deeper relationship. And to me, that speaks to this issue that we have, as a nation, like broader, of the disconnect that people have between one another and with the land. Yeah. And that's what people are struggling because of that, Native and non-Native. And so that's that's a gift that we have, is the fact that we know that we know it, and we know how to fix. We know what to do. We haven't necessarily had the capacity or the ability to always to do it for reasons that have been beyond our control. But we know what we need.
But now we can tell the story, like you said.
Right.
And we know what we need,
and we can fight for it.
And just like respect for the water, we have songs and prayers and ceremonies for the water. And for the longest time, no one's understood why we've done that. We understand why we do that. The water is important to us. It's that important to us that we respect it and hold it in that much reverence. The air is the same. We have respect and reverence for the air, and and all of the animals and the things that crawl and the earth herself. All these things, we have that respect, that deep respect, and it is going to be up to us, I think, to bring that back into the fold, into this place here, so that people can understand a little bit more about what's going on, so that we can knock all this nonsense off.
Absolutely, and it's also a big thing that also came up for us, I think, is understanding for those who spoke up against us, which was a relatively small minority, but they were a powerful minority because they had money, because they could afford the fancy attorneys. This small minority who spoke up against us, what we eventually learned was the reason they were, and again, their arguments were things like, oh, it's too hard to say, it's you're trying to change history. But what we learned was they were scared, right? They were scared of change. There was, of all of these folks, there was one elderly white woman who did come to every hearing. She never spoke, but she came to every hearing and sat in the front and looked really angry. And she was a resident at the lake. They were, she was fearful of change. And what we finally realized was that they were scared that we were going to do to them what their ancestors and what John C. Calhoun did to us. We were going to take something away from them. The Save Lake Calhoun folks, they put out like full-page ads in the local newspaper saying that we were draining the lake, that we were going to make it disappear, that these extreme activists were going to take the lake away, and all your memories would be gone.
And a disco.
all of your memories would be gone. And that's just ridiculous. Like we weren't doing that. If anything, we were giving this gift. Like we were helping you to connect in a richer way. And for folks who stopped to listen and take it in, like they got that. Yeah. But for the folks who just didn't want to do it, they were scared. But it's because of that fear and that not being ready to recognize that we're not like them.
Yeah. And you know what it is it's historical trauma on their side too, because it's, and I don't have a really great analogy for it, but it's like if you stole some kid's bike in the neighborhood and you have it in the backyard and their mom shows up at the door, it's like, uh-oh. That's kind of like that's what's going on here. Is they understand that we're knocking on the door saying we want all this stuff back, and you guys screwed up, and they're afraid of what they're going to lose because they know. I mean, bottom line is everything that this country was stolen from natives, and every bit of damage that has been done to us and our communities has been so that they can benefit. So when we come knocking on the door and it's time for them to pay, it's fear for them. Like you said, it's that fear. It's that historical trauma that they're experiencing, that, that they were the perpetrators and their ancestors were the perpetrators of what we are coming to ask for now. Right. And it's that fear is that historical trauma that they're experiencing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And all of this is a part of healing. It's part of for the broader community. And that's what I think the reason why Bde Maka Ska became such a big thing, because it did, here in Minneapolis, and people are still talking about it, is because folks who at first didn't get it eventually got it. And they were like, oh, this is why. And it was like, it's part of the healing process. Mm-hmm. Like these are the things that maybe seem like little things, but they're not, right? Mm-hmm. Are sometimes some of the most important. And have, I hope anyway, have made some progress. We still have a long ways to go. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done here, but it's laid some groundwork.
And the message should be that will alleviate their fears by giving in and understanding, by listening and understanding. That will alleviate the fears, because really nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen to them. They're not going to lose anything. They're going to gain. They're going to gain from us. They're going to finally gain knowledge, wisdom, culture, an experience that they will cherish eventually. But it's a fear, like you said, of that change. And they're only going to gain from all of it. It's only going to be a gain. Once we get rid of all of these racist symbols and these statues and all this other crap, the names and all of that stuff, and we start to respect what all of this is, I mean, they're going to actually be gifted versus they think they're going to be taken from, but really what they're going to get is a gift, and they're going to get the gift of our wisdom.
Absolutely. And people they don't know yet. Like I'm doing this Kellogg fellowship, and Kellogg Foundation is based in Battle Creek, Michigan. So we had a trip to Battle Creek, Michigan, and I was on this bus, and they're taking us on this tour around Battle Creek, Michigan, and we passed by the Justice Center, which is basically the jail, the courthouse, the jail. And it's called, they live in Calhoun County. So it's Calhoun Justice Center. And who's walking in and out of there? It's Black and brown people, right? That's who's walking in and out of there day in and day out. And how can you not see that irony, right? And the fact that it's not irony, like that was actually intentional. That was intentional, that those were the names, that's the way this system was set up. And so when we can start seeing that, and we can start seeing that, like the representation of the names and how that's connected to these unjust systems, and until we start recognizing those nuances, you can make various changes along the way, but you have to get to the root of it. And until you recognize things like that, like a simple name, like you're not gonna acknowledge the greater issue, right?
Right. Wow. Good stuff. Well, hey, if you have a question there, I think Wolfpaw has a question. Ask it. Send it our way.
Ask me, and then I apologize. I do have to get going. I can hear my kid clawing at the door. He's gotta go to bed here.
I've got the same going on here. I got a 4-year-old, a 14-year-old, and high school girl who's now home sitting in her house, not being a girl, and I've got a 19-year-old in college. So I've got the whole gamut too. I feel your pain.
Oh my gosh, even more so.
Dang.
Well, Wolfpaw never asked a question, did he?
No, I don't see a question yet.
He had one.
he has a question. That's the question.
It's good to ask questions, Wolfpaw.
It is.
And
And
if you have it, feel free to forward it my way.
yes. So Carly, look up Native Ways Federation online, and you'll find Carly there. Oh, here we go.
Our other tribes. Absolutely. I think there are a lot of tribes helping, just like any other kind of entity or organization. Some folks are able to help more than others. And we just have so many different situations, right? We have some tribes that have done really well with gaming, but unfortunately those are in the smaller minority. And the majority of tribes just haven't had that same success. But we do have some good tribal giving programs that are out there that I think are trying to get better. COVID has been really tough, obviously, for so many reasons, including with the tribal gaming space, because I know there were a number of tribal gaming programs or tribal giving programs, I should say, excuse me, that stopped or were put on pause because of COVID, because gaming was put on pause. So we're still kind of, I think, figuring that out, what's going to happen. Shannon, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, it's been really bad. The association has been working on fundraising that it was really going to go gangbusters on, and with tribes especially, it just all came to a dead halt in March. There's no way we're going to be asking tribes who still aren't sure about the health and welfare of their own people, whether they're able to support our organization. And still, COVID numbers are rising everywhere. So, the long-term effects, the long-term economic effects and health effects of this pandemic that's not being taken care of by our federal government, for sure. It's just had a real hit on us. Nonprofits. Yeah.
Absolutely. I noticed, I was just going to say, I noticed Wolfpaw said something about being escorted out of City Hall for the Columbus statue. And I just want to say our Columbus statue, the Columbus statue here in Minnesota came down. And, that's been a big thing too, because it came down. And I know the folks who brought it down have charges that have been filed against them. And it's a whole thing, which is frustrating. And I just want to say that I also know that on the positive side, there's now a new committee. My sister's actually part of it, that the Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan, who's Ojibwe, is heading up, looking at the process. So actually making sure, because part of the problem was with people being forced to take down a statue was because there was no clear process for how do we get rid of this thing in the first place. And so now there is a committee that's tasked with both community engagement and the process aspect. And there are a number of Native people, which is so cool, which are both sides, figuring out what will be the process moving forward for such situations in the future. And I hope other states will do similar things.
Yeah. And every community is handling it in a different way.
Yeah. But just keep going, Wolfpaw. Keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep getting escorted out. They can't get rid of you. There's going to be a time when they can't get rid of you. There will be a time. You just keep doing it. Resilient.
Absolutely. Well, Carly, it was wonderful to have you. I'm so grateful you were able to take some time with us today.
Absolutely.
It's very good to see you, and please give your family our best until our next board meeting, huh?
Okay. Yes, coming up. All right. Thank
Carly.
you so much. I really appreciate this time.
We appreciated you too. Great stories. Right. Great stories. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yeah. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Carly.
Hey, you know what? Let me say something to Wolfpaw real quick. That was amazing. That was an amazing show. That was cool. I love her story. Wolfpaw, If you have a website or something that you can get some support on, please bring it to us or build it, and we'll help you. And whatever we can do to get the word out, make a TikTok, whatever you can do, and bring it here, and we'll get it out to everybody and help disseminate your cause and maybe get some people behind you. So good work. Keep doing it. Don't stop, and look for help. Look for help. And we can do that too.
Yes, thank you for saying that, Roy. Well, I want to remind
I can't wait till next week. Yes.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. So I'm putting in the chat right now that the 98th annual membership meeting and showcase of young and emerging Native artists is Saturday, November 21st, 1:00 Pacific, 4:00 Eastern time. So that's when our young TikTokers and Kimberly Guerrero, Tommy Orange, and Sean Taylor Corbett are going to help us facilitate that. And then on Sunday next week, they're all going to be here.
Yeah.
Red Hoop Talk. So we're going to have kind of a big circle of people, and we'll have some fun. And Wolfgang. Sorry, I'm calling you my son's name. Sorry, Roy. You've now graduated to another level of family for me, that I'm calling you names of my other family members. Okay, so at least I'm not calling you the cat's name.
Yeah.
The minute I start calling you Tigger, it's over.
Your cat's name is Tigger?
Yeah, his name is Tigger.
Okay.
No, he's not orange either. Anyway, so yes.
I'm excited about that. I am so stoked that we have TikTokers coming on.
Yes, and so you can talk about all sorts of TikTok, and maybe by then
I'll get some advice on how to do my TikTok better, because my daughter, she's so embarrassed to help me with the TikTok. She's like, Dad, do not do it. Please don't do it. What if one of my friends sees you? Don't do it, please. So I'm like, geez, man.
Well, maybe we need a Red Hoop Talk TikTok.
We do. Let me. I got brave this week. I'll get a little braver and move forward. And
that way you can talk to everybody.
What's that?
All TikTokers. If you have it for next week, you can show all the TikTokers, and they can all.
I know. I'm gonna try.
Feedback.
It's hard. It's not easy to just jump into that. It's I'm nervous about it. It's a big deal to me. It's a big deal.
No,
I don't want to just jump on TikTok and start, just throwing something out there.
Indian Dad TikTok, exactly.
Indian Dad TikTok. Okay, we'll do something. And I'm trying to, and now that I'm getting a little more dangerous, see, because after I get a lot more dangerous than this, about like 20 pounds of dangerous, then I'm gonna be deadly. And at that point, I'm deadly. So I just gotta get a little bit more dangerous back than deadly, and then I'm gonna have my confidence, and my TikToks are gonna be like boom, on fire.
Yes. So again, to respond to Lance, Saturday is the meeting and event with these young TikTokers, and other artists, and they're gonna share their songs, share their dance, share some of their videos, along with our annual membership meeting. So that's the Facebook link that I put in the chat. That's Saturday. But Sunday, regular time, regular place, we'll be doing we'll have a Red Hoop Talk with all of them joining us.
Yep. Good. All right, sis.
Yes, sir.
Who brought us this amazing show today?
Brought to you by the Association on American Indian Affairs since 1922, protecting sovereignty, preserving culture, educating youth, and building capacity.
Thank you. And
we will. You.
You're welcome. Thank you. And the last thing, did you see my new chair?
I know the head, because you normally don't.
Oh my gosh, I got the most.
Sleep there with Carly there for a while. You were looking
I got to be careful, because this chair is like the best, and it was very cheap. Somebody turned me onto it, and oh my gosh, if anybody's looking for an office chair, you got to hit me up on this one, because this is a good chair right here. This is
He's rocking and everything.
Look, it does the whole like it will
Will it go back?
Oh,
don't break things.
It'll go all the way. It'll go like 9 nights and stuff. Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Amazing time. Thank you, chat. Thank you, everybody, for participating. We appreciate you. Wolfpaw, get us some info, and we'll help you out. And we'll see you guys all next week on Red Hoop Talk.